markets are changing. Now I have my microphone and I can tell. Thank you. So how labor markets were changing and what we can do at the policy front to mitigate these changes to the best for everyone. And part of that research has been, that project has multiple outputs. We have a bunch of policy discussions, we have working papers, but we also have more practical outputs where we find hopefully better, more useful ways to share the information with people who are relevant for these discussions. So one way of doing that was to making the data more user-friendly and more accessible. For that, we have been developing multiple dashboards over the last few years, and today we will have a demonstration of the final 2 dashboards we released, and maybe also touch upon the last one we are planning to release in the coming weeks. So the main idea of developing these dashboards was to make people more aware of the numbers, so that to bring the conversation to the ground and put numbers on it, what we are talking about, how many people we are talking about, what is the speed of change. So just to help people to understand the magnitude and the implications of this change. So for that, we have chosen 3 important areas where we should be making data more user-friendly, and they were the level of technology adoption, how skills were changing, demand for skills were changing, and also how the labor markets are evolving, especially on the inequalities front. So we released a dashboard back in, the first dashboard we released in February 2023. It was on for whom telework was an option. So it was characterizing the availability of telework at a job and linking it to demographic characteristics of the worker. And it was highlighting a lot of inequalities and discrimination, not everyone being able, having access to these relatively good, more flexible jobs. So the second dashboard we released in September 2023, it's a very comprehensive dashboard. Today, Julia is gonna show us a glimpse of it. It was on technology, different aspects of technology adoption. First, it was covering how the infrastructure in EU looks from a digital technologies front, and how certain specific technologies are evolving, like AI, big data, cloud computing, and also the use of robots. So then, I think it was last week, we released another dashboard which was on twin transition skills, and it was basically showing how the transition of skills demand happens across EU member states over time. So I'm not going to go over too much detail. I hope some of you had already had a look on how the dashboards looks, but today we are here with Julia and Fabian, who helped us developing the dashboards. Julia is going to give us a short demonstration. We will also have Elena joining us from Lightcast. Lightcast is our data partner for the second dashboard, and she will also introduce the data and their methodology. So then we will have a short Q&A session in case you have any. Again, thank you for coming and joining us today. Julia,
Thank you very much. Well, hello everyone, I'm Julia, and I worked at the development of these dashboards. Today I'm going to present you the one about technology adoption and the one about twin transition. And before further ado, let's dive into the dashboard, because this is also a demonstration session that we're going to have. This dashboard is the most ambitious in terms of breadth that we have developed, because it consists of 5 different pages. Each one explores a different technology, and in the original mindset, we wanted each technology to build on the previous one. So in the first page, as you land on the dashboard, you will learn about foundation of technology adoption. And what we want to show here are the 2 staples for the adoption of new technologies. The first one concerning human resources on the left-hand side, and then the connectivity infrastructure on the right-hand side. And there are already dozens of data in here. We could spend hours talking about it, but I think that in this case, and also for the purpose of the dashboards themselves, it's interesting to focus on these little statistics that we have here, where using Eurostat data, we try to understand what's the percentage of the population, working age population, that has basic digital skills. And the result that we find for the EU in 2021 is 26.5%, so a little bit more than 1 adult in 4, which is quite a small number if you think about it, but it should be even smaller when you think that the European Commission set in their digital skills agenda as a target for 2025 that 70% of the adult population should have basic digital skills. And the interesting part of the dashboard is that it allows you to see how this breaks down by different age groups. So for example, here we are looking at, we see that there is a younger generations have higher digital skills than older generations, but then we can also select different filters. For example, we can look at education levels, and we would see, as we would expect also, that people with higher education have higher digital skills. We can also look at the gender gap, which is a little bit small for what concerns digital skills, but I think it's even more interesting when we look at the percentage of coding individuals. Here we see that half of the male share of people coding are females. And finally, we also have a degree of urbanization in case you're interested. But now we are focusing also on a static dimension of the dashboard, meaning that we're only looking at the European average. What it's interesting to do with this kind of tools is to compare countries. And for this reason, we have this little heat map here where we can compare different European countries. And so with the drop-down menu, we can select the variable that we're interested in. All the variables in this page are represented there. And yes, selecting again individuals with basic digital skills, we can see that the countries with the darkest colors, so Finland, Ireland, and the Netherlands, are also the only 3 countries that in 2021 already reached the European Commission target of 70%. All the rest of European countries were below the target in 2021. Keep it in mind. So this would be the first page of this dashboard, but, and as I said, we could spend hours talking about it. But another data point that I would like to bring to your attention concerns the big data adoption and artificial intelligence adoption in European enterprises. Here, we're not looking at the individual level, but at the enterprise level. These questions reply to questions. How many enterprises have adopted big data? And in Europe, on average, it's 14%. What we can do with this page is also select.
I think you are sharing your screen, Julia. So can we, so I think this...
I am sharing my screen. Maybe it's...
It's not your screen, which is we need to have speaker mode. So Julia was asking you to imagine how it would be.
So it's very nice that I spent the last 5 minutes clicking on stuff that you could not see. Yes, so let me, I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, I'm on it.
Here we go. Yes.
Okay, so here we go. I'm so sorry. So before I was clicking on these nice filters and I was showing you them up over here. And now I was navigating to the page concerning big data, where once again, we have an enterprise perspective. So this 14.2% represents the share of European enterprises that adopted big data. We can also decide to use additional filters such as enterprise size. For example, we can try to select bigger enterprises, and we find that here the share of firms that use big data almost double compared to the average. And what I wanted to draw your attention to in this page are the reasons preventing the use of big data. So here the question is, firms who consider the adoption of big data but didn't adopt them, why didn't they? And one of the main reasons is the lack of knowledge. And this can be seen also when we navigate to the artificial intelligence page. We have the same kind of chart. And one of the main reasons, again, is the lack of knowledge. So there are not enough skills. The pool of knowledge for the adoption of this technology is not big enough. And this data point can be seen again once we go back to the big data. When we look at the questions, why did you encounter difficulties in hiring ICT specialists? And once again, the pool of talent is too small. And I think this is very interesting because it goes also in the direction of the talk that we had this morning before. It was a closed-door event about reskilling. And it points toward the fact that these technologies, these skills are not yet spread as much as the demand would like. And well, these are just few bits that I decided to give you about this dashboard. You should play with it yourself. This is what dashboards are for. You should experiment, try to see what you find interesting. And I also want to stress that all of these data are downloadable. If you click on this button here, you can download everything in CSV files and reproduce the charts, do whatever you want, play it as it's yours. This is public information. And okay, so at this point, I would like to talk about the second presentation, which is about the twin transition. And in order to do this dashboard, we worked with Lightcast because this dashboard is based on online job vacancies data that the company Lightcast gathers and then also sells to who's willing to work with it. But before talking about the dashboard, I would like you to have an introduction about this data and this company. And we have Elena here with us, who's gonna give you a little presentation about it.
For working together on this project, the results of it are really interesting. I'm going to share my screen very quickly to give you an overview of Lightcast and of the data that is powering through these dashboards. So Lightcast is the global leader in labor market analytics. Our mission is to unlock new possibilities in the labor market by working with think tanks like Bruegel, but also with education providers, academics, economic development agencies, and businesses to draw attention on and use data insights to navigate labor market challenges. And we are an international company, and we have offices all over the world, including in Europe, in Milan, and in the UK, in Basingstoke. And everything that we do is driven by data. So we provide a wealth of data in the form of official statistics, but also our own proprietary data on online job postings as well as worker profiles. Both these data sets are big data sets gathered through collecting a lot of information and scraping them from online. And they give us a different perspective on the labor market that we can combine with official statistics thanks to the use of a number of different taxonomies and classifications. And specifically for this twin dashboard, what we have provided is the data on online job postings. And I wanted to spend 1 minute to explain what 1 billion job postings can tell us compared to official statistics. And what I can actually give us is a very granular picture of the labor market, the most real-time picture on the labor market. The data is collected up until yesterday. And it is very granular. 1 billion job postings is a number of data points that we can't get to with official statistics. And as a result of that, we can get a very clear snapshot of skills demands directly from the source, directly from employers. So this gives a nice complementary data set to official statistics. It is not a substitute, but it is a complement that can help us understand how the labor market is changing. Now, and this is a very confusing slide, and I want you to stay with me while I try to explain all the different points of the slides. The advantage of using online job postings data is that it is a very rich data set. However, it's a very rich, noisy data set. And in order to draw meaningful conclusions from this data set, we need to go through a process to clean the data and make it meaningful. So we start by sourcing and scraping over 1,000 websites that are related to recruitment. So it could be directly from companies that are trying to recruit, or job boards where we can find a lot of job postings. We bring all this data that looks like job postings together, and then we start parsing it. So we break it down into what a machine would recognize as different elements of a job postings, like a job title, the skills required in it, the salary information, company location. And then we use all this information to quality filter the data. Sometimes something looks like a job postings, but it isn't. And we want to make sure that we're only capturing job postings. From there, we arrive to a point in which we have only job postings, but we have many of them. A company may recruit for the same role in 4 or 5 different places. For example, it can put it on their company website as well as on Indeed or on LinkedIn as well. And so what we need to do then is to try and deduplicate these job postings so that we have one postings for one role. And then after having done this deduplication, we then have the data in a clean format that we then need to structure to draw meaningful insights. And so for each of the unique postings, we can gather a number of information specifically related to the location of the job, the company that's recruiting for, the title, the skills required in the job, and so on and so forth. So what does this look like visually in practice? It means taking a job postings like this one and extracting, thanks to our AI models, all the different informations that are related to it. And the end result of this is what I started with, a billion data points. And for the last year, just to give you a sense of the magnitude, we've collected over 100 million unique job postings across the whole world. For this dashboard specifically, we looked at the European countries. And as you can see here on these slides, this gives you a sense of the coverage of the data and the quality of the coverage in different countries. And the coverage for all the European countries in the analysis is very high or high. So this is what the data behind the dashboard looks like. And then I'm going to pass it back to Giulia to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna share again my screen. Fantastic. So this said, we received this data from Lightcast and across all of the 27 European countries. And what we are interested to do, first of all, and this is what concerns the left-hand side of the dashboard, is to understand, out of 1,000 jobs, how many of these jobs are considered AI or green? And in order to do so, first, we have to define what is a green job and an AI job. And we decided to use a bottom-up approach where we basically say, okay, let's say this job has 10 different skills that are part of that job description. If at least one of these skills is AI or green, then the job is going to be AI or green. So this is our fundamental assumption at the basis of the dashboard. And this said, in the left-hand side, we can see that out of 1,000 postings, we find that for the European Union, in 2023, 15 of them are AI and 22 of them are green. And using the time filter, we can track this information back in time, but we can also see it in this little time series chart that we put here. And what we can see from the time series chart is that green jobs have been more frequent than AI jobs on average in the past, but the rate of growth of AI job, it's quite strong. In fact, these jobs almost doubled in the last 4 years. And once again, what's a very important feature of this dashboard is a cross-country comparison. So it's very interesting to see how these numbers differ across European countries. So in this, we can see it in the heat map. When we select AI, it's clear that Sweden is the country with the highest demand for AI jobs. And if we select Sweden, we will see that almost 100 jobs out of 1,000, so 1% of the jobs in the Swedish labor market are concerning AI, which is, I think, quite a striking figure. And especially we see a burst in AI job-related demand starting from mid-2022. And on the other side, we can also try to look at some countries with the low frequency of these AI jobs, such as Italy. And there we would see a different story. Also, the rate of growth of AI Italian jobs is lower. And well, this is what concerns the numbers, the levels of the jobs in the labor market. But as Elena explained, they have a lot of information for each job vacancy. And for example, we can trace the level of education that is required for an online job vacancy. And when it comes to Italy, for example, we would see that in this chart that more than half then the AI and the green jobs require a tertiary education, either a master's or a bachelor. And whilst the other half does not require any kind of formal education. This number of formal education requirement was even higher in 2019, and it has now loosened up. And this can be explained in the light of higher demand for this job, a limited pool of skills, meaning that recruiting firms are less focused on the qualification and more on the skill or the skill set that applicants have. And if this is if these are the number for Italy, where there is low demand for these jobs, when we go back to Sweden, we see this striking figure that 94% of the AI jobs and 89% of the green jobs do not require a formal education. So where demand is so high, formal education is even less important. And now we're going back to the European Union view. Another chart that we have explains the distribution across occupations. So where are these jobs the most concentrated? And it's this chart here. And we would see that green, but mostly AI jobs are mainly concentrated in the professional category, as one would expect. But when we compare this data point to 2019, we can see that the distribution is now more flattened and less focused on the professional occupation, meaning that there has been a trickle down of this job that were probably more innovative 5 years ago in the rest of the occupational distribution. And finally, the question that everyone was wanting to ask, but what are the skills? Maybe we should have started with that. And to answer this question, we have the last chart here where we show what are the top 4 skills for AI and green jobs. So the famous skills that would define these jobs. So for the European Union, we would see, for example, that in 2023, the most wanted skill would be variational autoencoders. Which I'm not an engineer enough to grasp fully what it is about, but in case you're interested in this more technical information, then here is where you would find it. And it's also interesting, in my opinion, to compare year by year how these top skills evolve with time, so to see also like the demand and the trends. And well, once again, this dashboard is here to be played around. If you want all of the data, they're also downloadable here, and you can reproduce and do your own analysis. And I think that with that, my presentation is over. And if you have any question, we are here to reply.
Maybe for our online participants, I can quickly remind, we also take questions through Slido. The hashtag we are using is work. If you have any questions, please share it there. But I think we also have questions here in the room, please.
But it's fine, maybe I can speak up.
And is it not working?
I'm not. Oh
It
yeah,
is
it's
working.
working. Okay, great. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Linda Kunerteva. I'm working in the Commission at DG Employment, and we're working on the file of green jobs. And the research that you've carried out is very similar to what we're working on. And I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions regarding some of the challenges that we come across in our work, specifically about how the data from Lightcast or just generally online data can be reflected on when it comes to sort of like underrepresentation of, let's say, lower skill jobs that are not necessarily renewable energy or engineering, but for instance, construction or installation work, which is not so often covered in online job vacancies. So yeah, this issue. And second question was, how does the platform, or if there are any reflections about greenwashing, essentially, because how do we go about jobs that are perhaps so that would be linked as green, but they would be in companies such as Shell or fossil fuel industries? Thank you.
Do you want to take it or? Okay, we have another question. Let's take that one too, and then we can respond. I think the microphone is not on.
Sorry, I'll start from scratch. My name is Rafa, and I work for the World Bank. So I have a question regarding the implications for the skills that are being identified as being related to AI and green jobs, which presumably will increase in the foreseeable future. So if you think about the skills supply side, there are two types of important actors in the supply side. The formal education system, which is very, let's say, static. So it's very rigid. So it's very difficult to accommodate changes that you see in the short term in the supply of this type of provision. But the other one is the short-term training course. So what would be the implications if you were to advise DG Employment or even more the labor ministries around EU member states in terms of how should they adapt their short-term training courses to try to match what you're seeing on the demand side? Thanks.
Thank you for the $1 million question, Rafa.
Yeah.
So I think everybody is curious about it, but I doubt any of us have an answer to that. So I will quickly want to address these questions, maybe then Julian, Fabian, and maybe Elena, if you also want to contribute, please join in. So with respect to underrepresentation of online data has many issues. I agree with you there, but the thing is, it is still very valuable. I remember 15 years ago, we were using a number of new jobs to forecast the evolution of unemployment rates. Now we are talking about skills and education requirements, and we are talking about millions, billions of observations. So the way we came in less than 2 decades is amazing, and it is gonna just grow exponentially. So the data having some issues like underrepresentation shouldn't be holding us back from using it, but we should be mindful about these problems of the data. So meaning we are not going to use online vacancy data to make assumptions or estimations or build ideas about low-skilled jobs which are more on the field, which will never be published on online platforms. So we should be mindful of these characteristics of online job vacancy data. Greenwashing, so that's very fair question. So there we had to, when defining what is an AI and what is a green job, we had to make a choice, and this was one way to start. We could also start green industries and go down and define them as green, but we all agree, I think this was the more intuitive way of defining a job as green, although it might be in a not so green industry. So regarding the education, so yeah, I think I don't really have an answer for that, but so one thing is that we are building a fourth dashboard now, which will be more on the skill supply. So it will be on different levels of education and how labor markets are evolving for these groups. So hopefully that would give us some intuition. While I think Rafael might have good answers to this question, so maybe you would like to reply to your own question. I don't know. We can do that also. But now I will just go to Julia and Fabian and Elena. Maybe they would like to add on those questions.
Concerning the data question, I totally agree with you. And I also agree with the reply that Doigo gave. There are some trade-offs to be done. And while using online job vacancies, we are totally aware of the data bias that come with it, both from the data and also from, as Elena explained, even though they try to curb it to limit as much as possible. There are also model biases, and we are aware of that. But once again, we think it's a very good proxy, and the fact that we have monthly, if not daily data, it's quite invaluable. And yes.
She's still blinking. She's still alive. So when I'll maybe. Oh,
I can hear you now. I think I couldn't hear you before. Were you asking me if I had any comments
yes.
on? Yes, okay. No, I agree with what's been said so far on the quality of the data. And yes, so we are aware of it. There's not much we can do in terms of, like, we can only scrape what's online. So everything that's been said so far on that point, I can only echo that. I wanted to talk about very briefly about one other point, which was about what about green jobs in companies that aren't, let's call them green companies. The approach that's been taken to this specific research project is looking at defining green jobs, any job that has at least one of the green skills in analysis, which means that captures also green jobs that are in green company, if we want to call them that way. But it's also a very interesting question about for perhaps further exploration to look at the transition between so-called brown jobs and green jobs, and what does that entail in terms of skills needs and retraining needs for those workers.
I think there's not a lot to add, but Lydia, is that right? Linda, I'm really sorry, Linda. I think so, having worked with this type of data in research on multiple occasions, the beautiful thing is it's so rich. If you go back 15, 20 years, maybe not that long, if you wanted to have the data set that rich, you would have need to interview thousands of people. That would have cost hundreds of thousands of euros. But online data in general is unobtrusive. It's a complicated word for saying, like, it has not been collected for this specific purpose that we are pursuing here. So you need to, in terms of research design, really carefully, ideally, I mean, they're doing a great work in kind of providing the technical requirements for this, deduplication and filtering, but also in terms of research design, whoever wants to work with this data, be it in research or in policy making, create research design that is less vulnerable to the potential biases that come with the data, regardless of how well you filter it or do technically do whatever you can imagine. And I mean, I'm happy to advertise maybe a little bit for our publication. My colleague Eugenia and I, we wrote a policy paper here in Bruegel on whether skills are more important than degrees based on this data. And I invite you, of course, all to have a look at it, but maybe from that point of view to have a particular or closer look at it, because we try to go for research design that is not vulnerable to all the potential obstacles that could come with biases and misrepresentation, and make a more, let's say, elegant or efficient use of the data. Maybe just one quick word on the taxonomy question, because usually that's a question that comes up with this data, is it should be bottom up. Like in this case, we move from skills from green skills, identify green positions or green vacancies, or the other way around, a green occupational green industry defines then the jobs that are advertised in this industry. I think the latter approach is definitely inferior because it would classify, there would be a lot of false positives in that sense, a lot of vacancies that just fall under the umbrella of an industry that somebody defined or people defined as green, but they might not be green. While there is room for green jobs within a not so green industry, definitely, but it still requires more research on this. Yeah, this is just like an emerging field of research working with online generated data.
I wonder whether we have other questions. We don't have any questions online, but maybe in the room. So if not, I don't know if you wanna, Rafael, do you wanna take, because we have 5 more minutes before we conclude. So if you like, we can give the floor to you. Would you like that? Yeah, to answer your question. So, or maybe you can add up more questions so then we can keep thinking about it.
So look, I don't have an answer, but I have some suggestions, and that is coming from the other side of the Atlantic. So there is this very famous paper by David Deming, which was published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, and with this paper doing something similar to what you did, but for the US. So he scrapped the data from online postings. He identified that the demand for social skills or socio-emotional skills or soft skills, whatever you want to define it, was increasing over the last 20 years in the US. And this was particularly true for some of the firms that were adopting new technologies. So just having in mind a certain objective of your exercise would allow you to at least say, well, what is it that we're trying to get to? And from at least my perspective, one of the major contributions that you can have with these billion observations is that you can identify some emerging trends in terms of demands for skills that are related to either green or AI or any other technology adoption. So I think that will be my suggestion. Also, you can try to identify, I don't know what type of data you have inside in terms of the description of job postings, but you can identify whether there are some professional competencies that are being required by these job postings. Because once you start talking about soft skills, professional competencies, some perhaps experience in X or Y or Z, then you start talking with the language of the skill supply side, something that can be translated into those that are providing the skills, because otherwise there is a disconnection. This is what the firms are demanding, but what the skill supply systems, education systems, and short-term training courses are providing, it is at odds, or at least it is not congruent. So that will be my suggestion. Just start exploring the data, have a look at what Daming and others have been doing in the US, and I will go about it. Yep.
So it is great that we also have detailed data on labor supply side through LinkedIn. We also have people from LinkedIn here with us. So there is, as long as there is data, research questions will never end, and we will be happy to dig deeper. So, and thank you all for joining us. Now I think we have to wrap. It is 1:40 already. It was a great pleasure that we were able to present our work to you, and hopefully you will find usefulness in it and help us to improve it, help Lightcast improve their data and inspire each other. Thank you again. Have a nice day. Bye. Thank you.